Hey guys. So if you guys were wondering, I am actually alive. I didn't go anywhere. Um, it's just like I said, it's just par for the course when you expect like my upload schedule to be like talking about last week's cup race just before the next race weekend starts. Again, I always try to get these videos out as soon as possible, but unfortunately, this week at work was just very. I was swamped with work a lot, and it always ended up with me just going to bed early because of the long day I had. It obviously didn't give me enough. I just didn't have enough time, or honestly, creative spirit to just make these videos. But I finally decided, Saturday morning, I decided, you know what, I just haven't worked on anything YouTube related, so let's just get down to business. Um, we have a cup race to talk about. Uh, Last week's cup race, of course, at Texas, and it was a pretty eventful race. Actually, eventful is an understatement. Um, and I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna rehash what I said in my trucks and Xfinity race preview. This is exactly what I feared, but I am not surprised because this is also what I expected. So, um, it was a beautiful sunny afternoon, 0% chance of rain. So, I mean, you love to see it. But the thing about this race is that drivers were just not confident. Track conditions were more harsh than yesterday, especially when you consider that they held practice and qualifying on Saturday morning. Um, it had Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson, two of the most successful drivers at Texas. They both crashed in practice. Kyle Busch, they had to roll out the backup car, while Jimmy Johnson, they made crash repairs and he will start at the rear because neither driver posted a qualifying time. The word of the day that was thrown around the garage during that day's cup race was sketchy. You could attribute that to some of that to the lack of the traction compound, which, in my opinion, worked out for the better for the trucks, if the trucks and Xfinity races were of any indication. But you could also see what the mentality of these drivers was already before the race started. Like, don't focus on racing the other cars, just race the racetrack. Um, that's honestly a quote you see um, from tracks like Darlington, but you don't see this with Texas, like race the racetrack and stuff like that. Um, and again, the story of the season leading up to this race was Hendrick versus Joe Gibbs Racing. Uh, they swept the top three spots, and they put 6 of their 8 combined entries in the top 11. As a matter of fact, only one car, looking at the starting order, only one car qualified outside the top 15, that being Chase Elliott. So Larson on the pole, he started on the pole, his third straight pole of the season. He's gotten qualifying figured out by this point. Ty Gibbs joining him in the front row in second, and Christopher Bell third. So like I said, Hendrick, Gibbs, top 3 spots. They swept it. Then the first non-Hendrick, non-Gibbs car is Tyler Reddick in fourth. Um, from JGR affiliate 2311. And then Chase Briscoe in fifth, the highest qualifying Ford, who at this point is still winless in the season. William Byron 6th, Ryan Blaney 7th, Austin Cindric 8th, Martin Truex 9th, and Bubba Wallace 10th. Then behind them, you see Denny Hamlin 11th, Michael McDowell 13th, Austin Dillon 15th, Carson Hocevar 16th, Shane Smith 18th, so Spire Motorsports putting 2 of their cars in the top 20. Logano 20th, Keselowski 22nd, Chase Elliott, like I said, 24th, the only the only driver who qualified outside of the top 15. And then going down the running order, you see Ricky Stenhouse in 31st, and finally Austin Hill in 34th. His first Cup start of the season, driving the third RCR car, number 33. Actually, there's a couple more drivers I want to talk about. Kyle Busch 35th. Again, he did not post a qualifying time because he had to roll out the backup car. And again, his crew chief Randall Burnett, he wasn't confident. The moment they crashed their primary, like all confidence was lost in Randall Burnett. Ty Dillon started 36 in another one of his colleague racing starts, with Daniel Hemrick in 38th, with only Jimmy Johnson between them in 37. So Colleague Racing, once again, they just did not come to play. Just another disaster class brewing for that team. They started in the bottom three. Both of their entries started in the bottom three for this race. Just absolutely atrocious effort during qualifying. But yeah. So along with Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson due to their practice crashes, Kaz Grala also went to the rear for unapproved adjustments. The team changed the steering rack after qualifying. So we go to stage one. The race immediately begins, and Larson has a great start up front. He quickly pulls away from Ty Gibbs. If you can already tell, clean air is going to matter a lot. The front of the field just quickly pulling out, and then the rest of the field just in a just jockeying for position in pretty much a bigger pack. Behind him, however, like I said, a lot of battles happening on the mid-pack between Chastain, Noah Gragson, Daniel Suarez, Martin Truex, Michael McDowell, just to name a few. Some drivers also started falling back and struggling too. The most notable of those was Brad Keselowski. He dropped 11 spots from 22nd to 33rd in the opening laps. And with Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson not making any ground, this meant that we had 3 former champions and future Hall of Fame drivers. Or actually, I believe Jimmy Johnson is already a Hall of Fame. But yeah, 3 Hall of Fame caliber drivers racing for 32nd at Texas. So other than that, though, not much happened in stage 1, honestly, until around lap 35 when green flag pit stops began. By this point, drivers were reporting being tight, and most of them had resorted to shifting in the corners. So the cycle started with Denny Hamlin, and it's not long before everyone follows suit. I saw Cindric, Gragson, Bubba Wallace, McDowell, Truex, and Buescher down pit road the very next lap. And then this eventually brings down the leader Larson down pit road, along with Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell, who pit a lap later, giving the lead to Ty Gibbs. And unfortunately for the 54 team, there is a fire near their pit stall on the lap that he was supposed to pit. This forces him to stay out for a couple more laps while the officials put the fire out. And when he comes down, his team gives him a slow stop, and this causes him to cycle back behind Bell and Reddick, 10 full seconds behind Larson. So Ty Gibbs pitting gives the lead to Chase Elliott, who decides to stay out long, along with Todd Gilliland, Daniel Hemrick, and Austin Hill, hoping for a caution to come out. And thankfully they get it, by way of Jimmy Johnson getting loose after going over the bumps in turn 3 and 4 and spinning out on his own. During commercials, which might I add, that's going to be a trend. This was pretty much a trend for pretty much the entire race. Every time they went to commercials, there was a surefire. There was a high chance there was gonna be a caution during commercials. But yeah, this allows the 4 guys who stayed out during green flag pit stops to pit under yellow, along with a couple of other drivers like Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Chastain, McDowell, Truex, and Briscoe. And this gives the lead back to Kyle Larson. And this also allows several guys to take the wave around as they were trapped a lap down. Between those guys were Alex Bowman, Hocevar, Austin Dillon, Suarez, Logano, Zane Smith, Gragson, Priest, LaJoie, John Hunter, Keselowski, Josh Berry, Stenhouse, and Eric Jones. Unfortunately, Truex has to pit again due to a loose wheel, as well as Ty Gibbs. And just like that, 2 JGR cars have been hamstringed because track position and clean air really matter in this race, especially in the long run. At the very least, they got screwed out of stage points for sure. So we go to the restart, and Larson pulls away once again, leading the Toyotas of Bell, Hamlin, and Reddick, with Briscoe up to 5th after pitting for 2 tires. The rest of the drivers who pitted during the caution also started slowly making up ground. To Elliott, Blaney, McDowell, and Chastain reaching the top 10. And stage 1 ends with Larson winning. Again, Bell 2nd, Hamlin 3rd, Reddick 4th, and then Chase Briscoe 5th. Ryan Blaney manages to make it all the way up to 6th, with Chase Elliott, Michael McDowell, William Byron, and Bubba Wallace running out the top 10. On pit road, we do see some strategy. Ryan Blaney stays out along with Austin Hill, Ty Gibbs, and Chris Buescher, and then everyone else pits. Truex wins the race of pit road with 2 tires over Larson, Hamlin, and Bell, who took 4 tires. The rest of the drivers, they also took 4 tires, with the exception of Cindric, who, like the 19, also decided to take 2. Briscoe loses a lot of track position, while Gilliland and Saint Smith are penalized. Gilliland for equipment interference, and Saint Smith penalized for removing equipment. So 2 equipment-related penalties on pit road for 38 and 71. Then we go to stage 2. Ryan Blaney pulls out to a 1.5 second lead over Austin Hill, managing to hold on to his track position. However, the moment Larson moves up to second, he just starts to quickly reduce the gap, and he eventually passes the 12 for the lead, just before a caution comes out for a big crash in turn 4. Bell gets loose and crashes, big damage to the left rear. Behind him, however, Alex Bowman spins trying to avoid the wreck, and he gets collected by John Hunter Nemechek. So it's a big hit for the 48. The damage is too much to be the DVP, and he DNFs. And again, might I add, this happened during commercials. The second caution that has happened during commercials. So everyone pits on pit road. Everyone goes to pit road, except for Todd Gilliland, who stays out. Larson wins the race of pit road after taking 2 tires. And again, we see more strategy with Truex, Tyler Reddick, McDowell, Austin Dillon, LaJoie, and Bubba taking fuel only, while Larson, Hamlin, Chastain, Blaney, Byron, Briscoe, Preece, Chase Elliott, Gragson, and Saint Smith taking 2 tires, and everyone else taking 4. Chris Buescher gets penalized for equipment interference in this pit cycle, and Austin Hill also goes to the garage after reporting steering issues. He started dropping like a rock after getting passed by Larson for second. He just started dropping like a rock. So something was clearly wrong with that 33. He took it to the garage, and now that I think about it, I'm pretty certain he never made it back to the track. So this could have been a DNF for him, for all we know. I'll get back. I'll get back to that later once I look at the finishing results. But I'm pretty sure he finished in last. But yeah, we go to a restart. Kyle Larson, he makes quick work of Todd Gilliland and again retakes the lead. Again, Larson had the car to beat during this first portion of the race. No one could touch him. Truex and Hamlin also follow suit, and then they proceed to have an intense battle for second. While the 38 car, he manages to hold on for fourth. Bubba Wallace and Ty Gibbs have a moment on the restart. The 23 car gets out of the groove and he washes off the track, forcing the 54 to check up as he was following his line. Both cars lose a ton of spots and they drop to outside the top 20. This green flag run doesn't last long though, as a caution comes out for Hocevar spinning in turn 1. Obviously he had some help from Kyle Busch. And speaking of Kyle Busch, he almost got collected in that. Fortunately, he didn't get any damage. And then under caution, this is the moment that changed the race entirely. And it was only lap 100 when this happened. Yeah, this actually happened on lap 115 actually. But yeah, this was the moment when the race got crazy, because Larson had been dominating the first half of the race. Larson just lost a wheel. No, I am not kidding. He was reporting a flat tire or vibration during the caution, and then the wheel, I believe that was the right front, right? No, it was the right rear. The right rear just came off while pacing on the apron in turn 1. You just cannot make this up. This is why I was reluctant to pick Larson to win. Just a little bit of a side note. When I was making my pick to win the race, I consider Larson simply because of the speed he has shown, but I have picked him last year and it did not end well for me. He crashed out late in the race, obviously. So this is why I was reluctant to pick him to win. Something always happens. And of course, again, this changes everything. So not only suspensions are coming, but because the wheel came out on the racing surface, he was penalized 2 laps. And this happened just before the restart too, so that is 2 lap penalty plus distance. This race just got wide open. I'm pretty sure after that just happened, and this is obviously it's going to be one of the what the fuck moments of the season. But you could tell that this race just went from, just another blah race to holy shit, some shit's about to go down. And shit really just went down for the rest of this race. So it all started on this restart. Hamlin, Truex, and Reddick are now the top three with obviously a Toyota 1-2-3. With Todd Gilliland still holding strong in fourth. And then we have another caution. Berry gets spun out in turn 1 after making slight contact with Stenhouse. And this leads to another restart where Truex has he gets a better launch on the outside, but Hamlin still holds the lead. The big winner on this restart, though, is Ross Chastain, who makes his way up to third, passing Tyler Reddick. One of the few guys that was just aggressive on restarts, because outside of no one could just pass cars on pure speed. The only guy that could do that was Larson. Other than that, you got to be aggressive on restarts, and Chastain was pretty aggressive all throughout the race, gaining spots on restarts. And if you watch the race, there were plenty of those. I'm talking about restarts, obviously. But unfortunately, this doesn't end well for the 45. As Chastain gets tied in turns 1 and 2 while racing side by side. And this forces him up the track, causing Tyler Reddick to lose a few more spots down to 7th. And then after that, he gets just aggressively side-drafted by Chase Elliott, and he loses a couple more spots down to 10th. Of course, not before, showing his displeasure to Chase Elliott. But yeah, if you were following me, because I was like jumping back and forth on that, Tyler Reddick just got straight up abused on that restart, because he got used up by Chastain, and then he got used up by Chase Elliott. While all this is happening, Chastain made the pass on Truex for second, and he was on his way to challenge Hamlin for the lead before, once again, another caution, another commercial yellow. This is like the third time this has happened today already. Josh Berry spun out and crashed into the turn 2 wall hard. Second time for him already. And this time, the damage is just way too much, and he is out of the race. So, for pit road, I believe this was towards the end of the stage. But yeah, Chastain stays out, along with McDowell, Stenhouse, Jones, Keselowski, Bubba, Hocevar, and Harrison Burton. The rest of the leaders pit. Ty Gibbs wins the race of pit road after taking fuel only. Daniel Suarez with an equipment interference penalty, and Corey LaJoie also penalized for driving over too many boxes. So then we go to the restart. McDowell and Chastain this time battle for the lead, and it's a pretty good battle for 3/4 of a lap. That is until the 34 runs over the bumps. He turns 3 and 4, gets loose, and he crashes hard on the rear end. And that was just a brutal hit. The car just snapped on him, and it looked like a hard crash too. Like, I know the safety issues with this Gen 7 car, they were like already addressed last year, but still, I cannot help but grimace every time I see a wreck like that on the rear end. And there were a ton of wrecks like that. Again, I'm so glad that NASCAR just addressed that, because this race would have been the cause of so many concussions. But yeah, if you've been keeping count, this is like the 5th caution already in stage 2 alone. Again, this race just got a little too chaotic for my liking. And to top it all off, by this point, Kyle Larson had gotten one of his 2 laps back under caution. So again, he is coming, and with the amount of cautions that there were in this race, he will have like plenty of chances to get back on the lead lap. So we have yet another restart, and Chastain pulls away, leaving the rest of the field to battle for second. And finally, after 5 cautions of just pure hell, basically, the stage ends, and Chastain collects his first stage win of the year. Behind him, like I said, is an absolute scramble. But Bubba Wallace, he comes out of it in second, with Ryan Blaney third. Then Eric Jones fourth, Chase Briscoe fifth, Keselowski 6th, Harrison Burton 7th, Ricky Stenhouse 8th, Ty Gibbs 9th, and Chase Elliott 10th in what was a really messy stage 2. Oh, yes. And of course, Kyle Larson also got the free pass again, which means that he is now back on the lead lap just like that. It was a very eventful stage for Larson, obviously, from leading the race to falling 2 laps down. But by the end of the stage, he's once again back on the lead lap. Funny how that works. But yeah, like I said, this race was just a track position roulette, so with the amount of cautions that there were. So I'm not surprised that Larson managed to get his It's not really a surprise that Larson managed to get his 2 laps back under caution, considering how many of those there were. So we go to pit road. Chastain pits, as well as Jones, Blaney, Brad, Stenhouse, Holsevar, Logano, Suarez, Busch, Preece, Bell, Chastain, LaJoy, Austin Dillon, Johnson, Gilliland, and Daniel Hemrick. I believe I mentioned Ross Chastain twice. Okay. Yeah, I'm reading off my notes here, so they're a bit jumbled up. But yeah, the rest of the drivers stay out, led by Bubba Wallace. And then we go to stage 3, and of course, the madness from stage 2 continues. Harrison Burton sends it 3 wide off of turn 2, and he takes the lead from Bubba and Briscoe. And then, just a few moments later, the 23 gets loose, collecting the 14th, and they both spin out. It was a great save from Bubba Wallace, though. Looking back on it, but still, because of Briscoe spinning, that was still a caution. But yeah, the madness from stage 2 continues. Like, what are we doing here? This race has gotten so insanely chaotic that Harrison Burton has taken the lead. This race has become so unserious. But yeah, on the restart, Harrison Burton, he holds the lead for as much as he can, to his credit. But eventually, and this was a fairly long green flag run, the green rise to the top, Reddick takes the lead away. The incidents just don't stop, though. John Hunter Nemechek hits the wall in turn 4, and he almost gets run over by Larson. Obviously, that wasn't a caution. The caution came out a lap later, though. Ryan Blaney, my pick to win, by the way, gets loose in turns 1 and 2. He spins and hits the wall. And of course, because NASCAR just did not have the replay, and they always post the replay, the onboard replays on social media, like on Twitter and Instagram, like a few days after it happens, because Fox just cannot do their job. He basically just got done by Ryan Preece, and apparently, from what I've heard from some people that were on Ryan Preece's onboard, Blaney had been aggressively blocking Ryan Preece, or he had been aggressively racing him, which is why Preece he tried to send him a message by bumping him, but it looks like he hit him a little too hard and ended up spinning him out. So he barely beats a DVP clock, but because there are too many men over the wall, he is forced to serve a 2-lap penalty. But it doesn't really matter because the speed was just gone with that damage. And just like that, my pick to win is just out of the race. Not really out of the race. He finished the race he still finished the race running, but he was 10 laps down. He was a non-factor by that point. So, we have another restart, obviously. Tyler Reddick leads with Denny Hamlin now second and Chase Elliott in third. Harrison Burton starts to drop through the field due to being on much older tires than the rest of the leaders. On the other hand, though, I just wanted to give a shout out to Zane Smith, who's having a great day in 5th. We see some beating and banging here. Kyle Larson, who is back on the lead lap, but he's unable to make much ground. I don't believe he cracked the top 20 after getting back on the lead lap, which was honestly a bit disappointing because I had the impression that he was one of the better guys in traffic. But then again, I do believe this was because he was at a tire disadvantage, or at the very least that's what was reported. But yeah, we had Kyle Larson and Jimmy Johnson door slamming each other for 25th, with Kyle Busch and Bubba Wallace also doing the same for 23rd. Again, story of how this race went since the start of stage 2. Leaders pull away, everyone else is left in dirty air and fighting for position. Honestly, since the start of the race, basically, not just the start of stage 2, but that's how the race was. Just track position and cleaner mattering. Otherwise, you're just stuck in traffic trying to battle guys for position. Thankfully, this green flag run is pretty long. I believe it was the longest green flag run of the stage. And we see Tyler Reddick pull out to a 4-second lead over the second place, which is unfortunate for some guys who stayed out the last couple of cautions as they have to pin under green. Those guys being obviously Harrison Burton, Austin Cindric, Chris Buescher, and Justin Haley. And the moment they do, this brings everyone down pit road. So green flag pit stops are officially underway. Byron is the next to pit, followed by Chase Elliott, and this brings down the leader Tyler Reddick as well as Denny Hamlin. And of course, the 2311 pit crew delivers another one of their iconic disaster class pit stops. For your reference, when Tyler Reddick entered pit road, he had a 6-second lead over Denny Hamlin. But he cycles back behind Hamlin because of the pit crew being super slow on the right rear tire. And that wasn't the only pit road issue for Toyota, because Martin Truex, he got another loose wheel on his pit stop and had to pit again. He lost like roughly 2 laps on that sequence. That Monday morning meeting is going to be really interesting for the Toyota camp. Well, at least the Reddick thing was, mitigated by the fact that he had such a fast car that he managed to catch and pass Hamlin on the track just a few laps after pitting. So, yeah, not even a bad pit stop could slow him down. Other drivers who pitted during this cycle, Stenhouse, Chastain, Larson, Bell, Gilliland, Bubba Wallace, from, what I saw. Not all drivers pit, though. Some of them stay out. A huge chunk of those stayed out, actually, led by Joe Logano, but also Brad Keselowski. I saw Kyle Busch staying out. Ryan Preece, Corey LaJoie, Suarez, Hocevar, Briscoe, the Dillon brothers, Grala, Daniel Hemrick. These guys were hoping to snag a caution so they could pit like Chase Elliott did in stage 1. And lo and behold, with how chaotic this race has been, it worked out for them. The caution comes out by the way of John Hunter Nemechek getting loose, spinning and crashing in turns 3 and 4 with big damage to the rear end. Again, what has been... I do believe this is like the 3rd or 4th crash we've had where a driver like hits it with the rear end. And it's been in turns 3 and 4. Surprisingly enough, most of these wrecks have happened in turns 3 and 4 instead of 1 and 2. Like 1 and 2, it has shown their... Turns 1 and 2 have been like a trouble spot for some drivers, yeah, but turns 3 and 4, especially turn 4, it has also been its own different animal in this race. You never saw this during the Trucks or Xfinity race. Like, most of the chaos during those races happened during turns 1 and 2. Most of the chaos here happened in turns 3 and 4 in the Cup race. Like, some incidents also happened in turns 1 and 2. But, again, 3 and 4, it was also Calamity Corner. So, we go to pit road. All of the drivers who stayed on the green pitted. Gragson, Ty Gibbs, Stenhouse, Jones, Larson, Buescher, Gilliland, Cindric, Bell, Bubba Wallace, Justin Haley, Jimmy Johnson, and Harrison Burton. All of these drivers, they take the wave around to get back on the lead lap, like what happened in stage 1. And then we go to the restart, and Chase Elliott makes an amazing 3-wide move on Reddick and Hamlin to take the lead. That was honestly really smooth. And Reddick was the big loser in that exchange because he dropped down to 4th as he got passed by Chastain as well. And then a few laps later, he gets loose and hits the wall while battling Chastain and Keselowski, who was just surging on fresh tires, for 3rd, losing a couple of spots. Speaking of that battle for 3rd, Keselowski came out as the big winner, and with his fresh tires, he proceeded to run down the top 2 of Hamlin and Chase Elliott, who they have been battling for the lead all this time. Hamlin had made the pass for the lead on Elliott like 10 laps after the restart, but the 9 had kept him in close distance since then. But just before Brad could pounce on either of them, a caution comes out for Stenhouse washing up in turns 1 and 2, spinning and crashing. So, we go to pit road. The leaders stay out, obviously. Only some of the guys towards the back pit, like Truex, Jones, Bubba Wallace, Bell, Gragson, Cindric, Jimmy Johnson again, Harrison Burton again, and Todd Gilliland again. Then we go to the restart, and we got another caution. This time by way of Kyle Larson spinning out after getting the short end of the stick on a 4-wide situation. Basically, from what I saw on the replay, Ty Dillon got into St. Smith, sending the 71 into Larson. So after resetting, and a caution that did not have to be this long in my opinion. I know that we're trying to sort out the running order, but still. Maybe, I think it was because they wanted to force an overtime, 2-lap shootout situation, but we have another restart. And Elliott and Hamlin immediately go to war this time, which ends with the 11 getting loose in turns 3 and 4, spinning out, and crashing. This is the third time today, after Michael McDowell and Bubba Wallace, that the second place car has brought out the yellow. And on all three occasions so far, it has been on turns 3 and 4. And unfortunately, this brings out another caution, obviously, and sends us into the dreaded overtime for the third straight race. After having 0 overtimes the first 6 races, the last 3 races have ended in overtime. So, in typical overtime fashion, as soon as the field makes it to turn 1, they wreck. This time, it's Harrison Burton and Kaz Grala getting together. So double overtime it is then. And Elliott and Chastain, because now Chastain is starting on the front row with Hamlin out of contention. Elliott and Chastain are even on the restart, but just like with Hamlin, the 9 car pulls away. Thankfully, the caution does not come out, and Elliott finally takes the white flag. And after Chastain and William Byron tangle behind him for a second, and at first, from that angle, I thought that Byron had wrecked Chastain on purpose, but upon further review and looking at the replay, it looks like Chastain got tied at a bad angle, and Byron just would not check up. As a matter of fact, you did not lift on the last lap, so I don't think any driver did anything egregiously wrong in this situation. But in the case of Ross Chastain, I would not be surprised if Chastain is like mad at William Byron or he feels some type of way, because again, from the angle that it looked like, it definitely looked on purpose. I know it wasn't, but you cannot tell Chastain that it wasn't on purpose, because again, drivers have an ego. They're always going to be biased towards themselves. If Chastain thinks that Byron did it on purpose, then he's gonna, look at the replay and he's gonna draw his own conclusions. Byron is obviously gonna draw his own conclusions, and they're gonna defend themselves, obviously. The point is, this was just a racing incident, and I don't think people should blame William Byron for that. Just like people cannot blame Chastain for just getting tied at a bad angle, because, this was in turn 2, by the way. The 4th time a driver racing for second, the second place car crashed out in the race, crashed out or brought out a caution, and this time it happened in turns 1 and 2, which brought out the final caution of the race. It happened on the last lap, so obviously the race ended under caution, and most importantly, this means that Chase Elliott has won. His winless streak is finally broken. He is back in the playoffs. And he also earns his first win with Hooters as his sponsor. Also, the first time since Bristol in the spring of 1992 with Alan Kulwicki that Hooters wins a Cup race. And fittingly enough, he celebrates it with a Polish victory lap. Alan Kulwicki, the guy that, beat Chase Elliott's dad for the 1992 title. Yeah, that Alan Kulwicki. This win also came in a very similar fashion to Jeff Gordon's own win at Texas 15 years ago. Just a first career win at Texas, which just breaks a long winless streak of more than a season. Like, seriously, I just don't know how, but every time a Hendrick car or Hendrick Motorsports, they win a race, it's always like, some sort of a, milestone for them. Because last week, or rather 2 weeks ago at Martinsville, it was, the race where it was at the track where Hendrick won their first ever race, and they were celebrating that, like, the 40th anniversary of that first ever win. And now this week, or rather, last week at Texas, Chase Elliott wins the race on the same track where Jeff Gordon ended his winless streak at. So if you're counting at home, that's 2 times in a row, or not rather 2 times in a row, but this is the second time a Hendrick driver has won at Texas to break a long winless drought. And it's very similar, and the circumstances were pretty similar to the way Jeff Gordon won that race as well, because like I said, this was Chase Elliott's first career win at Texas. Just like back in 2009, Gordon winning at Texas was the first win of his career, and this came after they had a multi-win season where they both looked like championship contenders 2 seasons ago. And then the season after, they both went winless. And now, the season after, they both win at Texas. So if you think about it, Jeff Gordon was a title contender in 2007. He didn't win the title, but he came pretty close. He was like in the mix all season long. Then in 2008, he goes winless. In the case of Jeff Gordon, that crash at Las Vegas could have like affected him, affected his back, I think. And then 2009, he wins at Texas after he breaks his long winless drought with a win at Texas. The same thing happens to Chase Elliott here, if you think about it. 2022 is similar to Jeff Gordon 2007 in that he looked like a title contender. He didn't win the title, but he was like in the mix all season long. Then 2023 was like Jeff Gordon's 2008, except much worse because Elliott was actually injured and suspended. But he still went winless. The end result was still the same, that he went winless, just like Jeff Gordon went winless in 2008. And now, Elliott in 2024 is just like Jeff Gordon in 2009, that they both win at Texas to break their long winless drought. And this win also extends the Hendrick-Joe Gibbs Racing dominance this season. There's now 8 wins among them in the first 9 races. They have combined for 8 wins in the first 9 races with 5 different drivers. And this is, because I love talking about stats, this is also the first driver. Chase Elliott also becomes the first driver since Christopher Bell at Phoenix to win a race, the first driver not named William Byron or Denny Hamlin to win since Christopher Bell at Phoenix, if that makes sense. Because Bell won at Phoenix, and then after that we had like Hamlin winning, Byron winning, Hamlin winning again, Byron winning again. For a moment, I thought that streak was going to continue because Byron was in the mix. He was racing third. He was battling Chastain for second until Chastain got tied, and that race ended under caution. But, for a moment I thought the streak was going to continue, which meant that we would have Hamlin winning at Talladega, potentially. But this was a feel-good win. Watching a great driver like Chase Elliott just break a long winless streak, it's based, in my opinion. So I was rooting for him towards the end of that race. Of course, fans are going to cry, it's rigged, and they will spin the narrative of that one late caution, I believe it was for the Larson spin, being way too long because NASCAR wanted to see Elliott win. And, I do believe that caution was way too long. I am of the opinion that caution was like unnecessarily too long. But I don't think it was because Elliott was leading. It wasn't because... I don't think NASCAR extended that caution because Elliott was leading. I think they extended it because, in part because they were trying to determine the running order. But the main reason was because they wanted to force overtime. I just know NASCAR. They cannot fool me. I am familiar with their game at this point. But, yeah. Let's go over through the finishing results here. Notable finishers here. Brad Keselowski finished second. He was originally scored third, but upon further review, it was determined that he was clearly ahead of Byron at the moment of caution, so he was awarded second. If that flurry of late cautions didn't happen, though, Keselowski could have probably won that race because he was closing in on Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott on fresher tires. But hey, at least he managed to come out of it with a good finish. And this obviously helps him. He's been on a streak of good finishes lately that has helped him get back into the playoff bubble. Right now, I believe he's below the cut line, but not by much. William Byron third. Like I said, he came really close to stealing another win. Tyler Reddick fourth. After just straight up being abused all race long and slow pit stops, he manages to come out of it with a top 5 finish. Another driver who came out with a top 5 finish was Daniel Suarez, right behind him in 5th. This also marks his first top 10 finish since the Atlanta win. The only driver to have won since... the only driver not from Gibbs or Hendrick to win a race so far this season. Then after that, Chase Briscoe in 6th. Bubba Wallace in 7th. Austin Dillon 8th and Kyle Busch 9th. So a double top 10 day for RCR. And also Kyle Busch, he finally gets a top 10. And Carson Hocevar running out the top 10. He finishes 10th. That is his first career top 10. Awesome job for Hocevar. Joe Logano 11th. Ryan Preece 12th. Ty Gibbs 13th. And Martin Truex 14th. After just basically struggling with pit issues and loose wheels. It wasn't, yeah, Tyler Reddick wasn't the only guy that has struggled with pit mistakes. Ty Gibbs and Martin Truex Jr., his Toyota teammates over at JGR, they also had pit issues of their own, but they still managed to salvage a decent day out of it. Ty Dillon in 16th, another driver that managed to salvage a good day. And also Daniel Hemrick in 20th. So both Kaulig cars in the top 20 after, just being dismal in qualifying. So shout out to Kaulig Racing. By far their best day, or rather one of their best days of the season so far. One of their best races so far. Obviously Coda Allmendinger got a top 10 there. So you gotta count that. But Christopher Bell also finished 17th. He battled back from an early crash for a decent finish. Kyle Larson 21st. He battled back from a loose wheel, but the speed just wasn't there. He also got involved in that late caution, which I believe didn't affect him, as he was like pretty at a pretty dire disadvantage when it came to tires. Maybe that's why he was unable to make up that track position. Justin Haley in 24th, another top 25 for him on that Rick Ware Racing car, and Cas Grella in 27th. Jimmy Johnson 29th after just, struggling. At least he managed to finish on the lead lap. This is his first race, the first time he finishes on the lead lap since his final race as a full-time driver in 2020 at Phoenix. Then Denny Hamlin 30th after just crashing out late. Chastain also 32nd. He lost 30 spots on that last lap crash, and he actually got credited with a DNF. So if it wasn't for that, we would be talking about 32 cars finishing on the lead lap. But it looks like Chastain. Let me double check here. Yeah, so he was credited with a DNF. So only 31 cars finished on the lead lap. The last car who finished on the lead lap was Todd Gilliland. Yeah, he lost 30 spots on that last lap crash. That's 30 points right there. Holy shit. Ryan Blaney 33rd. Again, he was my pick to win, so I'm still a bit salty about that. Again, I hold Ryan Preece no ill will because I know Blaney was racing him aggressively, but I just hate it when my pick to win just crashes out. I've always had just terrible luck right now. John Hunter Nemechek 34th. Michael McDowell 35th, Josh Berry 36th, Alex Bowman 37th, and Austin Hill 38th. So that steering issue that he had early in stage 2, he never came back from that. He got a DNF. But man, I am so glad that race is over. It was way too messy for my liking. And this is exactly what I feared with the Cup race. It was fun, yes. It kept me on the edge of my seat, yes. But it was not good racing. It was way too chaotic. I watched NASCAR for the racing, not for the crashes or the wreckfest. There were 16 cautions in this race. I do believe this was a track record. I know the broadcast was talking about that, being a track record, about being pretty close to the track record. I think that last caution, pretty much, that crash with Ross Chastain and William Byron, that last lap crash, race ending under caution. I believe that last caution on the final lap, it set the record. The strategy element definitely spiced up the race, but again, with too many cautions and too many opportunities to pit, the running order was just scrambled like hell. You couldn't even tell who the car to beat was, especially after the incident with Larson and the loose wheel, which is when the whole madness started. This race, it basically devolved into a pick and choose when you pit. Hopefully a caution comes out to help you, and more often than not it did, and hope the rest of the field either stays out or pits. The thing is, however, there were a little too many cautions that turned this strategy game into more of a track position roulette, which is why the running order was so scrambled up, and you saw drivers like that had no business being up front, running up front, and leading laps in the short run, like Harrison Burton. Again, no offense to Harrison Burton, but you don't expect that guy on the 21 to. You don't expect that guy to run up front anywhere. To run up front anywhere that's not a super speedway. So I'm sorry. This race was still better, funnily enough. And this is also I don't know if it's funny or sad, but the sad part is that this Texas race, I still consider it one of the better Texas races in the Gen 7 era, which just shows the low expectations I have for this race. But that's the truth. Either nothing happens or it's a wreckfest. Kind of like what I thought of New Atlanta before that banger race we got earlier in the season. But yeah, my opinion of Texas is very similar to the opinion that I had of New Atlanta before, obviously that banger race earlier this season. And funnily enough, and I was talking about this, I believe I touched upon this in my Xfinity, when I was talking about the Xfinity race last week. But Atlanta and Texas, they used to be two very similar 1.5 mile tracks before they were, reconfigured into two completely different things. But yeah, they were two very enjoyable tracks where tire wear mattered, very abrasive, all surface, leading to, some comers and goers, just some great action. And they were 500 miles, and they were like 500 miles of racing, excitement, and also just, endurance. And also strategy, of course, with some strategy sprinkled on top of that. Those races were amazing. On the All Atlanta surface, obviously, I will always miss All Atlanta. I think, obviously, I think New Atlanta is fine for Cup racing, even if it's just only in the Cup Series. But that's another thing I find ironic. When talking about Atlanta and Texas, because Atlanta is a great track for Cup races only, and Xfinity and trucks, they just suck. And then you look at Texas, Xfinity, Xfinity produces a great show at Texas, and the truck series have been, and even the truck series, they have been decent. The truck race last week, the one that Kyle Busch won, that was a very decent truck race. And the Xfinity race was just, amazing, banger of a finish, as always. And then the Cup race, they just cannot figure it out. The Cup cars just cannot figure it out at Texas. I believe it is because, the Gen 7 cars, they tend to drive up the front end, while the Xfinity cars, you drive them off the rear end, which, could explain why drivers like Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott have been struggling to adapt, particularly Kyle Busch, which is a driver that, loves to drive the car off the rear end, and when he tries to, he always ends up wrecking out. Actually, before this Cup race, Kyle Busch had wrecked out of the two previous Texas races in the Gen 7 car because of driving it because of trying to drive the car off the rear end. Again, like I said, exactly that's exactly what the issue is, and I just don't know how to explain it. But we need more practice in qualifying, yes. We already have qualifying, but we need more practice. That's what we need, obviously. So these drivers can, if anything, other than for these drivers to, adapt more, because the lack of practice has really hurt some of these big name drivers. But that's a conversation for another day. So yeah, for this race, honestly, I'm gonna be nice. Like I said, this is one of the better races at Texas with the Gen 7 car, but again, that's not that high of a bar to it's not that high of a bar to meet. My expectations for this race were low, and I'm so glad I kept it at a minimum. So I'm gonna give this race a C. It's just like I feared. The Cup race was the worst of the three races this weekend. Tires mattered, yes. No PJ1, no resin, not artificially, chemically treating the track. That helped a bit. But obviously, track position was still king. Being aggressive on restarts was the only way to truly advance in this race. And that's partly the reason why Chase Elliott won, because that 3-wide restart on Hamlin and Reddick got him the lead. That was the key moment of the race. Also, Ross Chastain, he was in it. He was in the mix as well, just like Chase Elliott. He was aggressive on the restart. And that's something that Kevin Harvick pointed out, that Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain, they were the two most aggressive drivers on restarts, which is why it wasn't a surprise to see the two of them on that racing for the win on that final restart. As for the driver of the day, obviously I'm gonna go with Chase Elliott. I know, boring pick, but the guy, again, like I said, he just broke a winless streak of, more than year and a half almost. Yeah, it's actually a year and a half because his last win came at Talladega in October of 22. So he broke a year and a half winless streak. And he had to earn it. I don't care what the haters say that, oh, it's rigged for Hendrick and stuff like that. He had to earn that. He had to earn that. Several late race restarts. That aggression, that aggressiveness, it could have definitely beaten back, came back to bite him because somebody else could have had a better launch and send it into one, similar to how he did on the restart that got him the lead on Hamlin and Reddick. But he hit his marks perfect, and he managed to hold off the field. He never let go of the bottom lane. So, yeah, Elliott's my driver of the day. I want to give a honorable mention to Carson Hocevar, though, simply because it was his first career top 10. But, yeah. Elliott breaking winless streak. Like I said, it's always based. Driver of the day for me. So, yeah. That's it for Texas. We're going out to Talladega this weekend. I don't have much to say, honestly. Oh, yeah. I got some announcements that I want to make before I wrap this video up. Regular uploads are coming soon. I already have 2 videos planned out. The first video could come out either tonight or tomorrow morning before the Cup race. And then the other video, it's gonna come out at some point later this week. But yeah, these are gonna be like the first 2 regular uploads of 2024. They're not gonna be like live streams. They're gonna be actually like regular uploads, edited videos and stuff like that. So if you guys were looking forward to that, there you go. So that's all for today. And let's go on to Talladega.